are all sorts of advice and tips given on the internet how to save money on a cruise vacation. And today, I wanted to grade some of the tips and advice on how to save the most money on a cruise. Here we go. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. I've been writing about Royal Caribbean cruises for well over a decade, and a big part of what I do here is, of course, share ways and strategies to save money on a cruise vacation. No one wants to overpay for their cruise, after all, and getting a sweet deal is really important for pretty much anybody out there. No matter how much you've allocated to spend on a cruise vacation, at the end of the day, you want to get the best possible deal. And I ran across a thread on Reddit, in fact, it was in the Frugal subreddit, about how to go on a cruise and save money, get the best possible deal. And there were all sorts of tips and advice given to the person who posted about this, some of which I agree with, some of it I don't agree with. Anyway, I wanted to go through each of these tips and grade them as to how effective or good idea it would be in actually saving money. Let's start off with a tip from someone whose account was deleted, but it said, get an indoor stateroom. You're probably not going to spend much time in there anyways. And this tip is fairly accurate, or more accurate than I think some people give it credit for. When you're booking a cruise, there's a pretty good chance that an inside room is going to be the cheapest possible cabin. There are exceptions, but I would say the vast majority of the time, booking an inside cabin will be cheaper than any other kind of cabin out there. And this person is correct that in most cases, I think most people spend less time in their cabins than they think. In a lot of cases, when you're booking a cruise, whether it's a 3-night or a 7-night or a 14-night cruise, you look at your cabin as a really important part of the cruise vacation because it is where you're going to sleep and shower and spend some time on there. But especially true with Royal Caribbean, there is so much happening on board your ship that in practicality, I think most people end up just simply using their cabin to sleep and shower and change, and they're on their way doing other things. So if you think about it from the perspective of how much time you're really going to spend in your room, and of course, factoring in the time you'll be spending in the ports, restaurants, entertainment on board, maybe it's not that much time, then saving money by booking an inside room is a really good idea. Now, there's a couple of reasons why booking an inside room may not be the best idea out there. First of all, depending on how many people are in your room, number one, right? If it's 1 or 2 people, an inside room is totally fine. But if you got 4 people, like you got kids, that can be a tight fit no matter how frugal you are. And booking actually 2 connecting cabins or a larger cabin might be a better idea. I would give this tip a solid A. The next tip is from user Wish I Was Younger. Gingerly remove the plastic from a large scope bottle, wash it out, fill it with vodka and a shot of blue curacao. Then replace the top and plastic sheath, hide in your suitcase, or wash out shampoo bottles and fill with vodka. Please tip your room steward a cash tip at the end. So this tip is about how to save money on alcohol by sneaking alcohol on board your cruise ship. Now, Royal Caribbean and pretty much every cruise line does not allow you to bring hard liquor on board. You can bring bottles of champagne, or wine for that matter, in your cabin. That's totally allowed to be brought on board, but beer and liquor is not allowed. And what this tip is about is not so much saving money as it is breaking the rules and, quite frankly, flagrantly breaking the rules. So when it comes to the rules, listen, I get it. Alcohol ain't cheap, and this is true no matter where you go out for alcohol. If you're not buying it retail, if you go to a restaurant, a bar, or a cruise ship, you're going to pay more than you would if you went to like a liquor store and picked it up and brought it yourself. I get that. Here's the reality. Number one, it's a cruise ship and this is their rules and it's their way or the highway. And breaking the rules puts you at a great risk of getting in some serious trouble. I mean, you really do risk being denied boarding and being kicked off the cruise ship for breaking these kinds of rules. Now, whether or not that actually happens or not, I think it's more the moral issue that you shouldn't be breaking the rules. The rules are in place for a reason. And for the alcohol, yeah, it's for them to make money, but they're a for-profit business. Just like if you go to a restaurant, you don't bring your own food in there from McDonald's and sneak it onto the plate and then say, nah, I'm just here for appetizers or a drink, right? You wouldn't do that. This is how the way the world works with the cruise ships. It is part of their strategy. And there are ways, by the way, to save money on alcohol without flagrantly breaking the rules. First and foremost, drink in the ports of call you're visiting. When you go to these various ports, odds are it's going to cost you a lot less to drink on shore than it is on board the ship. And that's a great way to save some money. Number two, as I mentioned, you are allowed to bring wine and champagne. 1 bottle per adult on embarkation day is allowed. And hey, that can really save you some money, especially when you bring that bottle of wine or champagne to dinner. There are free events on board your cruise ship in which alcohol is actually complimentary. The art auction is one of them. Also, when they do a top tier event for Royal Caribbean's loyal customers, they'll offer free drinks there. So there are some strategies to help mitigate that. And of course, don't forget about the drink of the day. This is a featured alcoholic drink every day of the cruise that changes per day, and it is at a reduced price. So it's not necessarily going to be free, but there are ways that you can certainly bring down that alcohol bill. So as a tip, I give it an F. Next is a tip from Suna50, and don't pay anything extra and just enjoy all the free things the cruise has to offer. So Suna50 is correct in the sense that you could simply enjoy everything included with your cruise and not pay anything extra. Royal Caribbean offers a very modular cruise experience. They give you a price to get on board the ship, and there's a certain subset of entertainment and dining and various things to do that is included with your cruise fare. And Suna50 is correct that you could simply get on board the ship and not spend extra on specialty dining or maybe doing the escape room or paying for other forms of entertainment, the spa you get at the casino. Makes sense, right? The reality of this tip isn't so much that it's inaccurate or not, it's just how practical it is. For a lot of people going on a cruise vacation, they want to splurge, they want to relax, and they want to get away from things, and most importantly, have a good time. So yes, you could save money and be truly frugal by not spending anything extra on board the ship. I just think in my experience, it's not that likely or practical to do that, because I think you're going to find that there are plenty of reasonably priced extras that you could do that are going to be of interest to you because, again, you're on vacation. So I give the tip a B. It is totally accurate, but I'm just not sure how practical it is. Next is a tip from Sir247. Buy tickets well in advance. Take advantage of deals and specials. The rooms without windows are the cheapest. A lot of cruises have kids come free deals. If you have children, go on off-season type cruises where there's rain season in a certain area, for example. Good luck. There are a number of different tips within this particular post here, and certainly we already talked about booking an inside cabin. That's where Sir247 was talking about booking rooms without windows. He also mentioned a lot of cruises have kids come free deals if you have children, and this very much is a great tip if available to you. Royal Caribbean offers kids sail free, and they've been offered pretty much every month for quite a while now, in which if you book a cabin during a qualified sailing, the first two people booked in the cabin, which are usually adults, you pay for, but then the third and fourth passengers who were under the age of 12 would be indeed free from a cruise fare standpoint. You still have to pay for their taxes and fees, and of course any extras you book on board, like shore excursions or whatnot, but the cruise fare would be free. The confusing thing about kids sail free is that sometimes it's hard to see the difference because when you put in 2 people versus 4 people, it chooses different cabins for you. The easiest way to see how kids sail free can save you money is by putting in a suite. I'm not saying you need to book a suite, but for illustrative purposes, you can see this here because in that scenario, it's going to be the same type of cabin no matter if you have 2 or 4 people in there. Now, the problem with kids sail free is there are a number of blackout dates and restrictions with it. First of all, the kids need to be under the age of 12. So if you got older kids like teens, this does not apply. The blackout dates cover pretty much the times in which your kids are out of school automatically, like summer and spring break and Christmas vacation. But if you can find a sailing that works, it really can save you a little bit of money there, and it's a good deal. Another tip that Sir247 gave was go off season, and this is one of my favorite tips actually, which is to cruise in the shoulder season. So go to Alaska in the months of May and June. Go to Europe in September. Go to the Caribbean in July. These are times in which there's less demand for these particular regions, and that can absolutely save you money. So for Sir247, I'm giving an A for that one. Manberry15 wrote, if you're a Costco member, check their travel website. We found that for our honeymoon, their price matched the lowest that we found anywhere, but included room credits and a shop card. In my opinion, there are 2 problems booking through Costco. Number 1 is that Costco doesn't participate in Royal Up, the ability to actually bid for a stateroom upgrade. I have no idea why they don't do this, but if that matters to you, booking through Costco will be problematic. Number 2, and arguably the most important reason not to book through Costco, in my opinion, is that their service is not that great. Booking a cruise is easy, and yes, you can get some nice incentives by booking through them. The problem is you actually need service from Costco if there's a problem or an issue where you want to make a change. And the issues with Costco were really exacerbated during 2020, in which the cruise industry shut down and there were cancellations, people wanted to change. Man, they were pretty much gone and disappeared, and it was a really bad look for them. So go in with both eyes wide open, understand the downsides to booking with Costco, but you could certainly get some extra money by going through there. Of course, I recommend you using a good travel agent that charges you nothing extra for their services. And yes, maybe they're not rebating as much as Costco does, but the service you get and the assistance, especially if you're new to cruising, that can be worth so much more than an extra $100 here or there. So I'll give this tip a C+. Our next tip is from Expensive Dinner 6684. Most of them, especially Royal Caribbean, have great discounts on month-to-month basis. The last deal I got was in November for a cruise we have coming up in March. 30% off of mine and my wife's ticket, plus our daughter's travels were free. We ended up paying less than $2,000 for a 3-night cruise and booked a suite. Could have been way less if we wanted interior, but it's our daughter's first cruise, and I wanted to go for a larger room. So there's a couple things that are in here with Expensive Dinner 6684's tip. Number one, they booked sort of last minute November for a March cruise, and they clearly were able to take advantage of Kids Sail Free. Now, given that spring break is usually excluded from Kids Sail Free, I'm going to guess they picked a cruise that wasn't blacked out. But Kids Sail Free can absolutely save you some money there. Of course, the issue with booking these kind of cruises, especially when you're looking at a cruise that's, 5 months away, is potentially the selections and deals that are to be found, so to speak, will definitely vary from person to person. So your mileage may vary. I'll give this one a C. Gurfo Bits, hope I said that name right, wrote, a cruise is the absolute biggest waste of money if you're trying to make an attempt at being frugal. The entire cruise is set up to part you from as much money as possible, not to mention the majority of people go and buy a whole bunch of things, especially clothing, before they go. Well, this is certainly a glass is half empty look at cruising, and that's fine. I would say this, and I'm going to go really to the meat of what they said there about the entirety of the cruise is set up to part you from as much money as possible. Well, yeah, Royal Caribbean is a for-profit company in the same way that McDonald's wants to get as much out of you as possible when you go through their drive-thru, right? Here's the reality of cruising, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the food is included, as is the place to sleep. You're going to get plenty of entertainment, and you're going to wake up in a new place every morning. That's a pretty good deal off the bat, especially if you compare that to doing a land trip in which entertainment and food are usually not included with that. The places you'll visit, even if you skip shore excursions altogether, you can generally find some nice places within walking distance of where your ship docks. Just make sure you're back on the ship on time. That's a really important thing. And the reality is, a cruise is as frugal as you want to make it. That can range from really the cheapest possible ways to see the cities you stop in to the most expensive and elaborate. It's really up to you. I'm going to rate the tip from Gurful Bits as D. There's like a little bit of truth to it, but there's a lot of negativity associated with it, and a lot of it just seems to have an ulterior motive, quite frankly, in my opinion. Mouserman145 says, book a cruise that starts and ends close to your home, so flights are not required. Book an inside cabin. Don't book the alcohol or soda pop package. Don't eat in specialty dining rooms that charge extra. Take extra buffet food and sneak it off the ship for your lunches when you're on shore. Don't book any shore excursions with the cruise line. Book locally. A lot of tips in here, starting off, of course, with booking a cruise that ends and starts close to your house. You don't have to book flights. This is actually a great tip if this works for you, because if you live in St. Louis or Denver or Chicago, there isn't really an option for you to do that because, of course, you live too far from a cruise port. But if you live within driving distance of Baltimore or Galveston or New York or, of course, Florida, and you can drive to your cruise port, that will save you a ton of money. This person is absolutely right. The problem with that tip is just that not everyone can take advantage of that. I'm not even sure that if you lived somewhere else like Chicago and you drove to Florida, which is possible, how practical that is given, of course, the added cost of time required to get down there, gas, hotels, food, etc., and all that. Now, there are other tips about, of course, not buying the alcohol or soda package or especially dining reservation. These are true. And again, this goes back to a tip we talked about earlier in the sense that, yes, you could skip all those things and not have to pay for them. But again, you're on vacation. Is that what you want to do with your vacation? Some people will say, yeah, absolutely. I don't need to spend money on that stuff. I'm totally content without it. And you can have a great time without those things. But for other people, maybe they do want to spend on it. So there is truth to what they're saying. I'm just trying to be realistic about how most people work. And the last tip they have here is to take extra buffet food and sneak it off the ship. This is something you need to be careful of because on the surface it sounds like a good idea. The problem is in some of these countries, you're not allowed to do that. In fact, in Cozumel, they have food sniffing dogs who look for that because there are rules and restrictions about taking foreign foods and nuts and berries and all that off a cruise ship into a new country. And there's environmental laws with that. So you don't want to get in trouble for that. Keep that in mind before you sneak that sandwich from the Windjammer buffet. So I'll give this tip a B-. And the last tip is from Geeky Granny, Texas. Some things to keep in mind when cruise shopping with less expensive carriers. The initially quoted fare may not include port charges and will not include tips, alcohol, or excursions. Regardless, cruises may be a bargain for those who want to know their food, lodging, transportation, and entertainment are covered and you only need to unpack once. And Geeky Granny is totally correct in that. And a lot of times you'll see these great ads that advertise, 7 night cruises for $400 per person. Sounds like a steal of a deal, and it can be, but you need to keep in mind a couple things that Geeky Granny talks about. First of all, the advertised rates are rarely including things like port fees and taxes and gratuities and travel insurance, and those will add up. So whenever you're looking at a cruise, before you jump off the deep end and be like, yeah, this is the cheapest possible vacation out there, go and evaluate the actual price by, of course, going with the travel agent, having them price it out, and include as much as you can up front. I always ask for gratuities to be included rather than having them charged while I'm on board the ship. You've got your port fees and taxes. And then when it comes to optional things like alcohol and shore excursions, it's really going to depend on the itinerary, your personal preferences on how you like to travel, and of course, your priorities. Taking a 3-night cruise in the Caribbean is going to be a different approach, I think, than a 7-night cruise to Alaska, because of course, Alaska tends to be more of a destination, whereas the Caribbean, you could argue, could be more of just a, hey, I'm here for the weekend and just to sleep in and relax. But there's all sorts of ways to think about it. But Geeky Granny is correct that don't just see the advertised price as the end-all be-all price. It rarely is that case. So I'm going to give that tip an A. So there you have a look at how to grade some of these tips in the Frugal subreddit. When it comes to booking a cruise and getting the best possible price on, if you really want to save money, is truly the best strategy is to book as early as you can. The further out in advance, typically speaking, the lower the prices. As the cruise ships get full, prices tend to go up, and that drives up the price. And at the end of the day, the base fare that you pay is going to be the largest source of cost, probably, for any cruise that you book. So book as early as you can, book in shoulder season, consider a smaller cabin, and work with a good travel agent who can help you maybe find a better discount available. That's some of the best strategies to save money on a cruise. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets me know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.